Okay, we're going to talk about just real quick. Could South Carolina be better than everybody thinks? There's been a lot of discussion here lately about the Carolina Gamecocks and some momentum in the state. Even folks at Sports Illustrated were talking about it. So that's Georgia. That's going to be one of Georgia's bigger games, y'all. And without just taking a big giant turn on Carolina at all times, let's talk about are they as big a threat as say Tennessee or whoever in the East to stop Georgia? We'll start with Matt and go from there.
Well, I feel like we see this all the time, right? A team ends the season on a high note. Everyone thinks they're going to be great going into next season, and then they're maybe not as great, or they lose a couple games early that no one thought they would. That could be the case because they did end the season on such a high note, just ending Tennessee season, the way they beat Clemson. They did lose to Notre Dame, but it's a bowl game. I don't put a ton of stock into that, but I do think they should be good. It all comes down to Spencer Rattler for me. Can he keep that play up, or are we going to see the same Spencer Rattler that we saw against Georgia, where he was just bad? And he was bad for multiple games last year, but then he a light switched towards the end of the year. It took him 8 games for the switch to come on, but then he played well. So it's all going to come down to Spencer Rattler. But I think to answer your question, as a program, they are definitely headed in the right direction. They've got the top 4 kids in South Carolina committed to them. They are beating Dabo's butt on the recruiting show
Mhm.
right now. Nicholas Harbor, a 5-star freak, a guy they signed last year. Dylan Stewart, top 5 player in the country, is seriously considering South Carolina. They're doing very well on the recruiting trail, and they're loading up on a lot of 4 stars when they're a program that, you know, loves to get a few 4 stars, but it's mostly threes. Now most of their class is going to be filled with 4-star prospects, and they are owning the state of South Carolina right now. So they are heading in the right direction. Shane Beamer knows what he's doing. Still needs to translate to more wins.
Yeah, I think when you look at it in the scope of this season, um, I mean, I think that they're moving in the right direction. I don't think there's going to be this significant leap. If you just look at their roster, I just looked at it. I didn't know any other skill position guys. I don't know who Spencer Rattler's throwing to. Maybe they're good. I've seen rumors that their new offensive coordinator and Spencer Rattler have been getting along pretty well. I don't know the validity of that, but I think that some of that hype comes from the way they beat Tennessee at the end of the year. I think that's carrying into the offseason. I think that it's not accurate as to what they are. I do think that they are probably they're top 3 team in the East this year. I think that's what they'll be. They'll be number 3
Yeah.
probably.
I mean, we don't
So
know. Yeah.
I mean, but at the end of the day, I still think this is a 7-5, 8-4 type of team. I don't think this is a team that's really threatening to win those huge games. It's going to be early. That matchup will be early in the year in Athens. Um, I don't know. I don't see that being a close one. Just what 5, 6 months ahead.
Yeah. So let me just say this real quick about Carolina. They beat North Carolina last year coming into the 22 season and were very sort of that was a big deal in the state. And um, that said, this was their score against Missouri, 23-10. This was their score against Florida, 38-6. Those are huge red flags for me. I mean, that you lost to Georgia by 41 points. I mean, I'm not even being a smartass or an elitist here. That is not that big of a deal. They just got rolled that day. That they lost to Arkansas by 14, that is not a big deal. They lost to Notre Dame by a touchdown. Again, not a big deal. It's a big deal to lose at home to Missouri. That's a problem for me. And by 2 touchdowns, that's a problem. Getting your ass whacked. I mean, just someone just slapping you about the face, 38-6. No, that's not a we like if that we would be talking about getting divorced. You know what I mean? Like that does not work. So in what I don't think you can, and it was outstanding what they did against Tennessee. I mean, 63 points. I mean, it is the real deal. And then I can we can I'll just can we we'll save the Clemson for a little bit later in the thing. But I think the problem for Carolina is why are you laughing so hard for, Matt?
I
It's
mean,
like you
my buddy's a diehard South Carolina fan, so I have kind of an insight on how those people think and the big games. And like you said, they had some really bad losses. They were
Yeah.
such a Jekyll and Hyde team because
They
they had
were.
4 massive wins. The Kentucky game is massive to them. They think that they should be a better football program than Kentucky. They think Kentucky's all basketball. There's no excuse why they can't beat Kentucky consistently in football. That's a big game. They hate that they have to play Texas A&M every year. It doesn't make sense. It
They
is what it
chose
is.
that. That was
You
idiotic
that's
back then.
I don't understand it, and the fans
I
don't either.
do.
But
It
yeah,
was a dumb
they do.
decision. I
It was.
understand being stupid. I've been dumb before,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying I won't be in the future.
Yeah.
But they wanted to get Arkansas off their schedule, and they took Texas A&M. Go ahead, Matt.
That was a
Idiotic.
massive win. That was a massive win because they weren't sure they were ever going to beat A&M the way people
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
A&M
yeah.
was going to be. So, and then Tennessee and then Clemson. So they finally got their act together. But again, this program's too inconsistent. You can't get whooped by a bad Florida team like that and then look so great. And now we think you're going to be, I don't know about very good, but they still have to be consistently get past Kentucky and Florida for them to, be that third team in the SEC East. Maybe they could beat Tennessee again. It's going to be tough up there in Knoxville, but they're heading in the right direction. But I still think there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way next year.
All right, Ryan, hold on. Let me throw it to you in a second here. In conference games, here are the games that Carolina lost. They were 4-4 in league play, and the games that they won. I'm going to read Spencer Rattler's performance as a passer in those games. Losses first. Arkansas. Oh no, I'll go wins first. Kentucky 177. Texas A&M 168. Vandy 200, Tennessee 438 yards. Here are the losses: Arkansas 377, Georgia 118, um, Mizzou 171, and then the Florida game 145. He had one outlier, which was against Arkansas with 377. Ryan, he had one outlier in the wins, which was 438 against Tennessee. But for the most part, when he didn't throw for 200 yards, they lost, which is not shocking. When he did throw for over 200 yards, they won. But the problem is, Ryan, he's too up and down, and you just cannot know what this guy is going to do. One week against the Gators, he threw for 145 yards. A week later, bro, this guy goes for 438 yards, and I believe like 6 touchdowns or something crazy against Tennessee. And it was 6 touchdowns. And this guy is slinging it all over the yard, but he's consistency is a real issue for Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, he's got it somewhere in there.
He
It just
does.
doesn't come out very often. I
Consistent.
mean, there's a reason why he was the number one quarterback in that class, right? The talent's there,
Was he
but
number one?
he's been inconsistent the whole time. Oklahoma, all of it.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. Um, you just you have to beat. You can't be losing to those teams like that to be if you're going to be taken seriously. Not just the conference, but in that division. The divisions aren't going to exist much longer, but you can't lose to Missouri. You can't lose to a bad Florida team. I mean, so what? You should be Texas A&M last year. They were bad. You know what I mean? I don't look
I
at
mean,
that.
Arkansas was 6-6, y'all.
Yeah, I mean, they. I don't know. I think that because I mean we'll have the division this year. I think it's a bad division. It's not. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is.
Georgia, it's Georgia, yeah, and then Tennessee, I guess. But we have to see them do it again this year before we can say anything about Tennessee, or that was just a one-hit wonder. I don't know what it will be, but do they have Tennessee at home this year? Where was that last year? That was see, I
They,
just don't. I don't think they're going to win that game.
I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee, but they do host Clemson, and they're going to get their jollies all hyped up for that deal, Matt. And we're not going to talk about this for much longer. Do you think that in the next 5 years they can take 2 or 3 games from Clemson?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sold on where Clemson's going just yet. They don't have an
Yeah.
offensive line. If that quarterback, Cade Klubnik, is not the real deal, I think they could be in some serious trouble.
Well, they don't appear. Well, the Clemson is another discussion for another time, I think. But I mean, for South Carolina folks, there is no bigger game than that game. I mean, they really get like into their feelings on that deal, which I understand, and that they come that they, the one thing that Clemson game from a season ago shows you about Carolina though is that they're tough. I mean, they are tougher than they used to be, and I don't know if that means like there's a difference between winning April and winning football games in the fall. Like everybody's ready to crown people or get, whatever crowning is these days. Everybody's ready to get hyped up about Kentucky or you know um, the Gators or somebody that's not in the top 4 or 5 teams in the country and say, well, these guys can really challenge, and get better. They can be a top 10 or so. I mean, can Carolina be top 10 next? Can Carolina be top 15 next year, Ryan? Matt?
I think that's probably their ceiling. Right? That's probably as good as it's going to get.
I mean, that means
that's a tough schedule. I mean,
that would be an outstanding season for South Carolina. By the way, they got Carolina to start the season. Furman, they should win both those games. They go to Georgia, they should lose. State, which they probably should win at home, and they go to Tennessee. Week off. Gators at Mizzou, at Texas A&M. They host Jacksonville State, which is not a state, and then Vanderbilt and Kentucky the 2 weeks before they host Clemson. They play 4 games in a row to conclude the season. They play 8 games in the Carolinas, and they only play 4 true road games. I mean, I think it sets up to be a 9-3 season if they're really good. I mean, who is their certain loss there, y'all, besides Georgia? Is Georgia a certain
I think that's
loss?
a certain loss. Yeah,
Okay.
They've got some tricky games at Missouri, as we know, can be a really tough game. At A&M, if they somewhat get their act together, that could be a tough game. So and going up to Tennessee is going to be a tough game. 9-3, those people are partying in the streets.
Hard.
They know
in the
expectations.
Travel.
Yeah. Ryan's going hard.
You don't like chain link fences, man? Have you gotten your tetanus shot lately?
Well, I just, I'll just stay away from there for now, and I'll be all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think 9-3 would be worthy of a celebration for them.
We'll see if they can get there. Thanks for watching.